Hi everyone, it's Tim Topham here, and in today's video I'm going to be answering another question from one of you guys, our viewers and members. This question is a really common one, it's a really tricky one as well. So it's from Andrew, and he asked, how do I respond to a parent who says they're discontinuing because of their child's lack of progress? Now this one's a bit of a tricky one, but the first thing I want to suggest is that if you've got to a point where this has just suddenly come out of the blue, then I think the first thing to think about is to work on your parent communication earlier on, because you don't want this to be a surprise. I was taught this as a school teacher. You never want to get to a point where you haven't kept in touch with a parent over time so that it gets so bad that you suddenly have to ring them up and say, oh my goodness, your child's about to fail this course or this year. You want to make sure that you're starting that process earlier on. So that's kind of an overall viewpoint about this situation, because it is a bit of a tricky one. Okay, so look, I think the first thing to do, the first step would be, and make sure you're doing this by phone or in person preferably, don't try and do this by text messages, whatever you do, would be to say, thanks so much for letting me know. I really appreciate you sharing your concerns. Would love to have a discussion about this. And I think there's a number of different things that we need to do. Remember that for a number of parents who may have had lessons themselves as children, depending on your jurisdiction, they may have been really focused on, achieving exam level, or recitals or performances or concerts or whatever it is. And they may be basing their child's progress or lack of it based on their own experience as a child learning music. So one of the things that we need to remind parents of, I think, is that progress isn't always about flashy achievements. It's not always about the exam mark or the concert or the competition or whatever it is. It could be much more simple, about making up some music, about being more creative, about having better rhythm or better posture or increased confidence. So you could start by just saying, I've actually noticed there's been some incredible progress. Here are the steps that I've seen and the improvements that I've seen over time. Even better would be to show them videos or audio recordings over time of the progress that this child has made and some of the things that they may not have seen or noticed because perhaps they're not sitting in lessons, that has actually been occurring over time. So that's a great thing to do, is to actually track and keep track of progress through simple videos. Just grab your phone out and record the child playing something or doing something cool. Ideally, you want to be sending that to the parent as soon as you've done it, just to say, oh my goodness, look what Billy did in his lesson today. How cool is this? But also just having that as some evidence for if a question like this does come up. Now, I think another important step is to reframe what progress actually means, and thinking about, the leveling and trophies and all of those kinds of things. Is that actually what the parent wants? Is that what the student wants? Is that what you want? You guys remember, the parent, student, and the teacher should be working as a triangle, right? Or you could think of it as a three-legged stool. You need all three legs to be strong and supportive of each other in order for the stool to actually stand up and bear weight. So I think this is a really good indication that perhaps there needs to be some more discussion around the next step, the next set of goals. So I would be saying to this parent, why don't we take another 3 months or whatever it is, set period of time to work on a goal together that we can achieve together. So how about we work on a specific goal for the next few weeks? I'd really love to help work with Billy on this, and we'll get this piece up and we'll do a recording and we'll send it on YouTube to his grandparents of this piece. How does that sound as a goal for the short term? And then perhaps you could talk about in 6 months, well, we've got the recital at the end of the year, or we've got an exam that he could do. How about we work towards that? And of course, making sure that Billy, or whatever the child's name is obviously in agreement with this, because it's super important that the child has agency in what they're learning. And this is one of the pillars of the Top Music approach, is this student-centered teaching style, whereby we're not just telling the student this is what you have to do and this is what you must learn. Depending on their age, we are involving them in the discussion. Particularly as they get older, we want to give them more agency, more choice in what they're learning, the music they're learning, why they're learning, the skills they're learning. That is super important too. So yeah, it's a little bit of a tricky process, but I think reframing what progress means for that child is really important, and having an open discussion about it. And then I would be suggesting a next step. So rather than saying, oh, I mean, look, if they're 100% set on quitting, there's not much you can do except, say, look, I'm really sorry that it hasn't worked out. If you would like to come back in the future, I'd love to see him or her, and do keep in touch and all those kinds of things. You'd want to say that. But I think it would be really good to try and get to a position where you can say, well, look, thanks for bringing this up. I'm sorry that we haven't sort of been in alignment with regard to the progress. How about we work on something really specific for the next little while, and we work to achieve that, and then we can look at some longer term goals. I think that's really reasonable and positive and encouraging. And for a parent who's committed to lessons with you and has been with you for a little while, surely they're going to be open to continuing that relationship rather than going and having to find another teacher or whatever it is that they think they might do next. So Andrew, I hope that's been helpful for you and has given you a few things to think about. I think, the big point is, let's not let it get to this situation, obviously, if we can possibly help it. I'm sure you've tried everything that you can do to not let it get to this situation, but can we redeem it somehow by setting a set time frame for some goals coming up that we can work on with the child and the parent and be all in alignment in order to make that progress. But, it really does come down to, I think, reframing what progress means in today's day and age with students who are busy. Maybe they're not making actually much progress because they're just so busy with everything else that's going on in their lives. And maybe that's a conversation that you can have with the parent as well, to say, look, I'm doing all that I possibly can to help here. Unfortunately, little Sarah is not actually getting any time to do the practice that she needs to do, so progress will be really, really slow. I also want to share a link to a practice matrix, which was done by one of my great friends, Samantha Coates, an incredible teacher here in Australia. We'll put the link in the description below. But it basically is a great simple matrix that you can share with a parent to show them about their involvement in student practice and the importance of those two things on progress, how much progress they're going to make. It's a great one to share with parents who may not quite understand that their involvement and their child's progress are really closely interlinked. If you've got any other suggestions for Andrew or situations like this, please leave them in the comments below, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.